This is Tactical Tuesday on Chasing Poker Greatness with your hosts, Brad Wilson and Jon Chai.
Welcome to another episode of Tactical Tuesday. In today's show, Jon and I are going to be going through some deep stacked live cash hands that he has played in recent memory. Jon, how you doing, sir?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, these hands are going to be, for the most part, significantly deeper than most of the online hands that I'm playing. And I think that is just like one of the exciting parts about playing live poker. One of the big differences between live and online is that most of the time you're playing online, you're 100 big blinds, somewhere around 100 to 200 big blinds effective, whereas like that would be considered almost shallow stacks for a lot of live games. So interested to hear what your feedback is going to be on some of these much deeper than 100 and 200 big blinds hands.
Yeah, and it's forced, right? Like when you play online, you could theoretically, rat hole every time you double up. Just leave a table, wait, join another table at 100 big blinds, and just like reset your stack. But live poker, you can't show up with the intention of playing for 10 hours, plan your whole day around going to the casino, show up and double through, and then just like pick your chips up and go home 10 minutes later. You essentially have to keep playing. And with that comes, if you ever make money playing poker, if you ever have a winning session in your life, well, you're going to have to play 300, 400, 500 big blinds deep. And that's just the nature of the game. And it's one of the reasons why I think live poker is so fun. It creates a more dynamic game where you have to critically think and problem solve in kind of different depth situations in the same way that like tournaments are, but it's like kind of the opposite of tournaments, right? Your chip stack in tournaments goes down, but chip stack in cash goes up. And so like you're forced to play way deeper in live cash and then way shallower in live tournaments. And my preference, as with everything in life, deeper is better. So let's go into this first hand. You got red kings.
Yeah, so this is we're 5K effective, but it's actually 5, 10, 20. And this is actually the first and only hand where the rec, who's technically under the gun, decides to put on the 40. So I guess we're not actually as deep as it initially appeared on the initial screenshot, but
this
is
another
5,
thing.
10, 20, 40. Yep.
Yeah, this is another thing about live poker, right? You get yourself in a 4 blind scenario where, you have to make adjustments. So yeah, 5, 10, 20, 40. We got 4 blinds on. The rec is in the big blind. Pretty good timing for them to put the 40 on when you look down at 2 red kings.
Yep.
So
it's even better. There we go.
So low jack goes ahead and limps in. They're technically, I don't know what position they are actually. So we have a limp, a 200, you 700 it. Looks like everybody's 5K deep.
It's just me and the hijack for the most part, since he's going to be the main villain for this hand.
All right, so hijack, low jack folds, and the hijack calls. Tell me what you know about the hijack.
One of the regs at the table, definitely a pro. Beyond that, don't have a great sense for even little things like, usually when I see another pro at the table, I can kind of get a sense for like, oh, does this guy play online, like based on sizes and different lines and what they decide to do on certain board textures. I didn't have any sense of that for this guy yet.
Okay, so just a person, may as well be anonymous.
Yeah.
They call the 700, and the flop is tray for 7, all reds, 2 diamonds. So not the scariest board that you could see. I guess they do have, some hands that have like flush draws or double gut shots, ace 5 suited type hands, and you block a lot of their flush draws with overcards like king queen suited because you have the red kings, and the villain checks, I presume. There's 1,500, $15 in the pot. You've got 4,300. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that you bet here.
So I thought this was like the first just decision point in the hand. Obviously, pre-flop, there isn't much to think about when it goes ISO. I'm just always going to be 3-betting kings. I actually decided to check back kings here. Thought that red king, especially kings with a diamond, aces with a diamond, makes some sense as my like check back traps on this 7-4-3 two-tone board. Don't think that this is a board where I would just be c-betting my entire range. Don't think this is a range bet board is basically what I'm saying. And so like some of the hands that I check back, I think should also be higher equity hands. And I think, kings with a diamond, aces with a diamond, hands that really don't need very much protection. Maybe, there are a few hands in there like the ace-5 suited, like you said, that have quite a bit of equity versus our versus aces and kings. But other than that, there just isn't all that much going on. And also think that one of the nice things that happens when we check back ace and kings is that, we can let hijack either just start bluffing with a hand that wouldn't call a c-bet, or maybe they turn top pair with a hand that wouldn't call a c-bet and now either decides to value bet themselves or has a much better reason to bluff catch than they might on 7-4-3 where they have just 2 overcards or something like that.
All right, I'll buy it. And you can check behind and they can realize equity too, with like a queen jack suited, turn top pair, which is always a nice possibility. You could check back and they could bluff, which is also pretty nice. So I'm definitely can get on board with the check. I think the alternative path would be to like bet something pretty small. I think I don't necessarily consider this board like a big bet board specifically because of the pre-flop positions that are in play here. I don't think there's like tons of equity shifting turn cards. So yeah, like I'm on board with check, would be on board with small bet, probably lesser on board with big bet, but
cool. Yeah. I think that last thing that we should add to is that like the SPR is such that like we can easily get stacks and, even with a check on the straight. And that's going to be a big part of my consideration too. Like I'm still planning on hopefully stacking this villain or getting my stack in somehow. And that's very doable when we have 4,300 in our stack and the pot is 1,500. So
you're hopeful to play for all the money, whether you stack villain or villain stacks you. It's just you're going to play for all of it here. We're going to play a 10K pot, or you're going to do everything in your power to play a 10K pot, I should say. So you check back. You check back the flop. Turn is a deuce of spades, and villain bets 800. So they looked down and found the half pot button, which. Yeah, I think you're probably just going to call. I don't.
Yeah, you don't really think much of the size.
I don't think it should really be a size.
Yeah,
so
neither do I.
I would now think that villain is likelier on the weaker white belt side. That would be my inclination. And with the weaker white belt here, I think that they can just be betting a wide variety of hands. It's not necessarily a polarizing bet. I think it could be very merged. They could be betting pocket fives here for quote unquote protection against ace king, or just whatever rationale that they choose. So I think like villain most likely just betting to bet could just have 2 random overcards, could just have a pair. When you call the turn bet, they will undoubtedly put you on ace king, because what else would you check behind with on the flop and then call the turn bet when the board is deuce tray 4? So yeah, like I'm definitely on board with calling the turn and then, jamming, trying to fade the death rivers, ace 5, 6, and yeah, jamming versus check, calling versus all in.
Nice. Yeah, that was my plan too. I also in agreement with you about the size. I think this was like the first real read that I got in this player was seeing this turn size and having the same thought that you did, where I was like, okay, this probably is not one of the sizes that I would have gone with here. So, maybe Reg lost a little bit of credibility in my eyes.
Sure. And I think like instead of saying the size that you would have gone with as if you're the end all be all god of sizing, it's a sizing you didn't expect to see from a studied brown or black belt player, we should say. So you call river's a 9 of diamonds, which doesn't really like do anything for me. They now have flushes, but as I mentioned before, they can, we block the flushes. They're essentially going to tell us whether or not they have a flush, I think, by their action on the river. So if they check, probably just don't have a flush, and you just get to jam and, target their bluff catchers and rep ace king.
And if they jam, they probably have some flushes, but we're still not folding.
True. You could always they don't jam, they check. Oh, they okay, so they go ahead and bet 2450 into 3115. Any energy reads here?
Both bets, both the turn bet and the river bet, were very fast. No tanking, no what size should I go here? It was just like bam, 800 on the turn, bam. Like he announced the 2450 before pushing out the, like he had this number in mind almost, it seems like, before we even so he said 2450 and then he like cut out the chips and pushed them out.
Yeah, I think in that case I just call the river and don't jam for value.
How does all that affect your call?
I think it's just a more polarizing action. I think like what they're kind of saying is that they have a hand that's like really strong to where they don't need to think about it, or they have a hand that's relatively weak that they don't really need to think about it. And like, I would discount like pocket eights, but I mean, maybe they have like tens or jacks that they can overplay here. I think that's potentially possible.
That's the big concern for me, is just missing out on the jacks and tens value.
Yeah. Like 12 combos of value versus, I mean, maybe they have queens too. Maybe queens is there, like, so 12, 18 combos of value, and then their sets.
Give him 15 combos, only 3 combos of queens. I thought queens would, who knows? I mean, I didn't expect this guy to bet 800 on the turn either, but I thought queens would 4-bet pre-flop.
10. Yeah, so it boils down to like how many flushes they have, because like maybe they have like sevens, they have nines, and then that's 6 combos, and then maybe some like ace 5. So we'll call it like 9 combos of that. And then how many flushes do they have? Because like if they have 6 combos of flushes, then
ace queen, ace jack, ace 10, ace 5 of diamonds.
That's 4. But they have to also not jam the river with those 2, which is another interesting component to this. I'm changing my mind. I think I just jam, and like the last $1,000, if we don't have enough equity, then it's not going to be that ginormous of a mistake. It's going to be in this case, 2 big blind mistake because of the 40 on pre-flop.
It's tough to see a hand better than kings picking this size instead of just jamming the river, right?
I don't presume to think they just don't have flushes because of their villain profile. Like I've just seen enough crazy things coming from this profile that like it is not surprising when they have a flush here and just don't put all the money in for one reason or another. So gotcha. I don't know. Like it wouldn't be crazy if they had a flush, but the real equation here is realistically like how many flushes do they have? Like how often do they take this line with a flush, right? That's the thing that like ultimately matters the most. And so also like we didn't talk about it. There's probably some removal from sets due to their instantaneous river bet, because the flush completer, I would think, would cause them to think about the situation like at least briefly, like, oh, I have a set of 7s, the flush completed. Should I be afraid of this card? Type of situation. So I don't know. There could be some removal there. But all in all, yeah, like just stick the 1,000 in, and if they have a flush, they have a flush. But I think it's going to be a profitable jam long term.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed. I tanked embarrassingly long in the spot. Like I just there's so much stuff to think about, and I was just like, oh my god, this is not one of the sizes I was expecting on the river. Like, how do I decide whether to jam or just call over the size? And I actually just ended up just calling. I didn't actually think about one of the things that I didn't think about was just like removal to like sets and maybe even hands like ace 5, like hands that are straights, just snap betting the river. Like I just assumed that those hands would also bet the river. Maybe part of that assumption is that like I thought that the hijack thought that I would bet most of my flush draws on the flop, and so he now is a little less concerned that I have a flush once the flop goes check check.
I don't really think about what villain thinks as soon as they use the turn size. Like,
yeah,
I don't think about what villain thinks about what I would do. Like, I don't go to that level once villain chooses that turn size, because I think most likely they're kind of just playing the hand that's in front of them and playing the situation in front of them. So yeah, that kind of, I wouldn't prioritize that thought here. It would be more so like, can I get called often enough versus worse hands or not? And like I said, it's only $1,000 more, which in the big grand scheme of things, there's a 40 on, which is 25 big blinds. So that extra 25 big blinds, it's only going to be a couple big blinds mistake if it's a mistake. And I think the upside is much bigger than the downside. I think it could be, a 10 big blind plus 10 big blind jam if they're splitting sizes here with their flushes and their sets and their straights.
Yep. And presumably we're assuming that they just always put in that last 1,000 with jacks and tens when I do jam.
Well, they didn't put in that 2450 to fold to another 1,000. Let me tell you that much.
Yeah, I guess. Like, I'm just thinking about myself in hijack shoes, and if I did pick the size with jacks and tens and got jammed on, I would be like very sadly looking at my last 1,050 in my stack and just.
I mean, think about how flawed that thought is. Like,
I know. I'm just...
If you would have bet the turn, if you would have chosen the turn size that they did and then chosen the river size that they did instantaneously, like, dude, come on, it's not you, it's them. So you call. Holy cow, they flopped
one of the
straight.
hands that we didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, so they flopped it straight with the 5-6 of hearts. You're really bad at playing these big pots against suited connectors with like aces and kings, huh?
These live poker hands, man, like, I don't know what, like, I'm sure it's just selection bias where, like, I only remember the ones that, like, hurt like this, but it just feels like this happens so much more, like, these weird ones happen so much more frequently to me than they do online. Like, not to bash this guy too much, but I would assume that most online regs would be folding the 6-5 suited pre-flop.
Sure, the classic high-level thinking thought there that these things happen more live than online. Live is rigged.
Yeah, well,
that's what we're going to go into.
If they fold these hands pre, they never happen online.
Yeah. Let's go into the break with that thought in mind, that live is rigged. Online, that's the pure poker.
That's where it's safe.
That's where it's safe. All right, stick around. Coming at you with more gigantic live poker pots. Stick around.
The CPG Wolves, Josiah.
The fact of the matter is I just earn more money playing poker now than I did before becoming a wolf.
Elijah.
There's a lot that can happen in life and in poker life, and Brad has never given up on me.
Jeremiah.
My game has improved drastically. I'm not even the same player that I was then. So yeah, transformative for sure.
Jack.
I think if I'd have to describe my Wolves experience in one word, it would just be growth.
Bobby.
Everyone's pretty high on how great the coaching is and the sense of community, but I think the retreats are one of the things that I really enjoy the most.
Rusty.
I'm a much better poker player. I'm a much better person. I'm in shape. I feel good. Being a part of this community, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Go to wolftryouts.com.
All right, welcome back. Here we are. Hand number 2. Looks like you're $3,000 deep in this one and $4,000 lighter after hand number 1. Let's see if you can do better with a queen and a jack. And I'm now realizing the faulty error in talking about how lucky you were to have kings the only time the straddle was on, because it didn't end well.
It's so funny how that is, where, like, I peel the kings and I'm just like, wow, this is, how could I be so blessed that, like, the one time the 40 gets put on, like, I just, whoa, it went limp and ISO, like, before me. This is incredible. And then
What a dream.
I'm walking home like, well, how do I get kings cracked the one time the 40 gets put on?
Yeah, just walking back, like scratching your head, like, huh. Now you see why so many poker players go mad. You know, this is the reason. So, queen and a jack of different suits. I'm guessing
Got
that's
the
a straddle.
again. Yep.
All right, so you're 3,000 deep, 3,000 effective. You open to 50 from the cutoff. The big blind calls. Whoa. Too fast. The big blind calls. The straddler folds. And here you are at the flop. Probably a good flop for you. 10-9-4. Rainbow. Open-ender. Overcards. This is kind of the dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me make it even more dreamy. The big blind is a very splashy white belt, as you would say. So gets even better.
Nice. So a spazzy white belt. Let's see what
splashy, not spazzy. He just calls a lot pre-flop and calls a lot post-flop.
So that's what splashy
I haven't seen him
is?
spaz in the sense that he just like, rips it in or some, does something where he aggressively puts his money in, but he'll
donks pot, things of that nature.
Things like that. Yep.
He does do that.
Does not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I haven't seen it. Maybe he does. Who knows?
I thought splashy was just like they just put a bunch of money in the pot in a variety of different ways.
Maybe we'll define our terms at the beginning of the show. I don't. Splashy, spazzy. Maybe they mean the same thing. Loose, passive, white belt. All
right.
We'll leave it at that.
All right, John, with your terms and language, what are you going to do here on the flop? There's 125 in the pot. You have, as mentioned, open-ender with overcards. Probably just going to big bet would be my...
Yep, that's what I do.
Okay.
We're also really deep, and yeah.
Yeah, get more money into the pot. Villain calls, have lots of equity, positional advantage, all good things. On the turn, you have a straight, which significantly upgrades your situation. Turn is a king of diamonds, so king 9-10-4 with the king 4 of diamonds. You got the nuts, as they say. So, villain checks. I'm guessing now you're going to be putting more money into the pot.
Yeah, bet pretty big on the turn. Definitely
pretty big.
I think I potted it or close to potted it. Just trying to put as much money in the pot now that I have a really strong hand versus a player that I think is going to be calling a lot.
Yeah, I think I would go bigger than pot.
Yeah, I think there's also an argument for overbetting. Yeah. Would have been really excited to. Maybe this doesn't matter. This is you might say this isn't that big a deal, but like I feel like on the 8, yeah, I would be really happy to overbet, and then on the king, I'm like,
What's the difference?
Yeah, maybe there isn't a big enough difference.
I mean, the difference is like villains might be more afraid of the king than the 8, but they're still going to have like pair plus draw on the turn.
Yeah, they're going to have like jack 10, jack 9, queen 10, queen 9 that don't even really, doesn't really matter to them whether it's a jack or an 8 or a king.
Yeah, it's kind of the dream too because the 9 and the 10 are not diamonds, so they can also have like 10x or 9x of diamonds that they can call with. So I think like they just have like a pretty robust calling range on the turn, and a player that's splashy in your words. In my words, Collie, just gonna do calling because that's kind of their MO. Mm-hmm. You bet actually under pot 250. Mm-hmm. Looking at it, what size do I choose on the turn? Probably like 420.
Wow, that's big. Okay.
Or 380, whatever. I would choose a big enough size to where jamming the river is not like a crazy looking thing.
Sure.
So you bet 250. Villain calls. River's an ace.
Hang on. Don't click the arrow again.
Oh, it looks like we're
stop it here.
Yeah. Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So villain's gonna find a way to get all in anyway, on their own.
That's what I'm hoping. So yeah, we get to this river. The river is an ace. Like my first thought is like, man, like another overcard. Like, should this impact my sizing or in any type of way? But before, I'm obviously sitting here very much expecting the villain in the big blind to check. He doesn't check, and he just like stares at the board for like a really, really long time, long enough where like the dealer looks at me and I look at the dealer, like just eye contact. I'm just like making sure like, hey, is it on me or is it on? Like I just want to make sure that he hasn't checked yet because I'm pretty sure he hasn't checked. And the dealer's like, yeah, he hasn't checked yet, right? So now he's like, now it's been like 2 minutes, and I'm just like counting his stack. I'm like, oh my god, like how could he just river 2 pair? And he's just like thinking about like what size to like donk on the river, or maybe he has like ace jack of diamonds or ace queen, like something like that. He's just like trying to decide what size to bet on the river. Like this is amazing. Like again, I'm sort of same spot where I had like kings with the 40 on. I'm just like, I can't believe I'm so lucky that like this guy's thinking about a donk size on the river when I have the nuts, and all I have to think about is what size I want to raise to. Now I'm not even gonna have to worry about a bet size. And he tanks and tanks, tanks and tanks and tanks, and then does probably the most unexpected thing.
Open folds?
Yeah.
He open.
You click the right click arrow.
Oh my God.
He looks at the dealer. I look at him. Everyone's kind of like, "Come on, man! Like it's your turn to act."
What on
earth? He just throws
earth?
his hand in the muck.
Was he like psyching himself up to like potentially lead and then just like back down after 2 minutes? Like what's?
I have no idea. I couldn't even tell if he knew that the action was on him. Like he just had like the zoned out, like looking at the, where everyone's like not exactly sure whether he knows or not. Like,
my God, I wish I could have a portal into his mind to know what was going on in there. Like what was rattling around inside that fellow's brain. Wow. What a beating. What a beating these two hands were. This is, man. Now, this is a hand you're probably not going to see online very much. Open fold out of position. Because it asks you, are you sure? Did you ask him like before you, are you sure? Like, are you sure you want to open fold? Like you can just check for free.
I'm only going to bet one big blind. Like,
here's $20, sir. What do you want to do? Oh man, what a sad ending to this week's Tactical Tuesday. You get stacked and then open folded out of position.
When I have the nuts.
Oofta. Yeah, when you have the nuts. So much for dreams. I guess that's going to do it for this week's episode of Tactical Tuesday. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, and podcast listeners, subscribe, review, all the things that keep us in business. I don't have anything else for you this week.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to Chasing Poker Greatness. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com to get the newsletter. Join the Greatness Village community, book a coaching session, or dive into the latest data-driven poker courses. Follow the show on Twitter @CPG Podcast.